we've been thrown a bit of a curveball. I expect you guys have heard the disappointing news that Jan Frodeno is out of the upcoming Ironman World Championships. And you might have also guessed that we made this video before we heard the news. However, we are going to crack on and still compare these two Olympic champions, and fingers crossed they will go head to head at Kona in 6 months' time. Beijing Olympic champion versus Tokyo Olympic champion. I'm talking about Jan versus Kristian, the reigning Ironman world champion versus the Ironman world record holder. I want to take a closer look at these two incredible champions and see how they compare on paper ahead of the big showdown at the Ironman World Championships. It is the upcoming Ironman World Championships that have got us looking at the comparison between these two Olympic champions. And I'm excited to say we're going to be hearing from both Jan's and Kristian's individual coaches who speak candidly about their relationship with their athletes. But first, let's take a look back at the route into the sport of triathlon and how Jan and Kristian went on to win those life-changing gold medals. All right, some basic stats to start us off. Jan is 40 and from Germany. Kristian is 28 and from Norway. Jan won his Olympic medal 14 years ago in Beijing in 2008. Kristian, as we know, won his just last year in 2021 in Tokyo. Jan stands at 193 centimetres tall and weighs in at 75 kilos. Kristian, 174 centimetres tall and 74 kilos. I mean, I could go on and on comparing all of these obvious stats, but I want to take a deeper look into the background behind these two athletes and dig into what makes them so special. Let's start with Jan. He was born in Cologne, Germany, but brought up in Cape Town and now lives in Girona. He's married to the 2008 Women's Olympic champion Emma Snowsill, and together they have 2 children. Well, Jan began his athletic career as a swimmer in South Africa, then moved into surf lifesaving in 1999. And it was the Sydney Olympics that inspired him to give triathlon a go. He soon found that he had talent in the sport, moved back to Germany to pursue his dream of becoming a pro. While winning a silver medal at the Under-23 World Championships in 2004 clarified that potential, making the step up to senior elite racing, Jan reached his first World Cup podium a year later. From then, he podiumed at another 3 World Cups, but not quite on the top step. Jan was also part of the German team to win a silver medal at the World Championships in the relay at the end of 2006. Well, no individual medals at World Cups in 2007, but a silver at the Europeans and another victory in the team relay. 2008 started much the same way, with medals at World Cups, and then the big one, his first individual win, and it was an Olympic gold. He took that form into 2009 and 10 with more wins and podiums at the World Championship Series races. 2011 and 12 didn't quite go to plan, however, with a 6th place at the Olympic Games. Jan retired from ITU racing a year later after helping Germany win the Mixed Team Relay World Championships in 2013 and then moved on to long course racing. It was a quick rise to success over 70.3 and then full Ironman distance racing, as the results reflect. 2015, Jan won the Ironman World Championships, being the first person to ever do the Olympic gold and Ironman double. He successfully defended that title a year later and broke an iron distance record at Roth in a time of 7:35.39. The next couple of years, things didn't quite go to plan at Kona, but it was back with a bang in 2019 with a win and a course record. Well, that brings us up to last year in the Tri-Battle Royale, where Jan set a world fastest time of 7:27.53. Well, this leads us nicely on to the new world record holder. On to Kristian, and we've got a shorter timeline due to the fact he was born in '94, brought up in Bergen, Norway. He also comes from a swimming background. However, Kristian soon showed talent for the run, representing Norway at the Junior European Cross Country Championships in 2011. Overlapping with his running career, in 2010, Kristian also represented his country in triathlon and then winning a Junior European Cup in 2011, 12 and 13. He stepped up to elite racing at the end of that year with a European Cup win and title of national champion, and by 2015 medalled at his first World Cup. 4 months later, another medal came, this time a bronze at the European Championships. And all of this built into his first Olympics. Kristian finished 13th in the Rio 2016. It was a steady trajectory upwards. The following couple of years, he went from winning World Cups to reaching the podium at the World Triathlon Series racing, culminating with silver at the Grand Final in Rotterdam in 2017. It was this year that he showed his talent over the longer distance and went on to win Ironman 70.3 Bahrain for the next 3 consecutive years, including setting and then resetting the Ironman 70.3 world record. He continued to mix the distances with a 4th place at Ironman 70.3 Worlds in Nice, an event his teammate Guustavv won. Back to ITU racing, and now 2018, a year that Norway made history with a full podium at the WTS race in Bermuda, Kristian taking the second step. In 2019, it was the grand final win in Lausanne that showed his form at what we thought was just a year out from the Olympics. He had to wait another year, but 2021 was a sweet one with the Olympic title and the WTCS grand final win and overall title. Kristian didn't stop there, with his dreams of winning Kona in the same year of the Olympics being dashed due to the postponement of the Ironman World Championships. He went on to race Ironman Cozumel, taking the win and a new world record time of 7:21 in his debut long-distance race. That's the timeline and the numbers. Let's now do more of a direct comparison and take a closer look at some of the similarities and the differences between these two athletes. I'm going to start with similarities, and there are more than maybe you realise. For example, they're both from a swimming background. They're both Olympic champions. Yes, I know you know that part. But they're both from strong triathlon nations. For example, when Jan won his Ironman title in 2016, it was a clean sweep on the podium for Germany. A couple of years later in 2018, Bermuda had a clean sweep with Kristian and 2 teammates at the WTS race in Bermuda. And then a few months later at the Ironman 70.3 in Bahrain, the same thing happened again. Both athletes are also very involved in the products they use and the development of them. For example, Jan worked closely with Canyon when it came to developing the Canyon Speed Max, or the recent edition of. We've seen Kristian doing some development of his wheels with Cadex, and potentially there's a prototype coming with his tyres as well. We don't know on that one. But the list does go on there. However, when it comes to differences, I think there are as many, maybe even more. One of the most obvious differences is the distances that they race. Jan, for example, when he finished ITU, he left short course behind and moved his focus purely to long course racing. Kristian, on the other hand, is racing things from as short and fast as Super League all the way up to full distance Ironman. When it comes to them as people and what we see as the public, Jan is far more closed to what he shares with us, whereas Kristian is fairly open. He posts various sessions he's doing on his social media. He's got a YouTube channel, and he also shares quite a lot on Strava. They're at different points of their career. I mean, this is quite obvious. Jan is reaching towards the latter stages of his career, whereas Kristian, especially when it comes to long course, is really at the beginning of that. So much so that he's even planning to go back to short course again and try and defend his title in 2024 at the Olympic Games. And then there's also their coaches. So Jan is coached by Dan Lorang, and Kristian is coached by Olav Aleksandr. And I think it's time to take a closer look at just what impact their coaches have on their training and their performance. They are both incredibly well-respected names in the world of triathlon. Jan's coach, Dan Lorang, has recently been in focus as Lucy Charles-Barkley has just teamed up with him, and he also coaches Ironman world champion Anne Haug. And then Kristian's coach, Olav Aleksandr, is very well known for his work with Kristian and the rest of the Norwegian team, science being at the core of their work. And I thought, rather than purely comparing the athletes, it would be quite interesting to have a closer look at the brains behind their performances. And I'm delighted to say that I've managed to speak to both Dan and Olav. All right, well, Dan, thanks for your time. We'll crack straight on. Now, as Jan's coach, I'd love to know a little bit of the background of how long you've been working together and how that relationship came about in the first place.
So now we are in our 10th season. Yeah, exactly. Or 9. Yeah, our 9th season. So we start at the end of 2012, beginning 2013. I always love to tell that story because it's still in my head. So he came there and he was sick and he just wanted to enter the pool. And I basically say to him, Jan, it's not a good idea. Better you go home and recover and then you come back when you're healthy again. And this small talk, I think gave him a little bit a confirmation to say, okay, this guy just tells me what he thinks, and not because I'm Jan Frodeno, but he wants to have the best for me. And 2 days later, he came to my office in the evening at the training space in Saarbrücken and asked me if I could imagine to be his coach. And but he wants to win Kona. And I say, okay, we will do this 2015. And it was basically, I just said it like that. And that was our start. And when he left the door at that evening, I also had to breathe a little bit in and out and think about what I just said some minutes ago. And but from there we start.
Wow, and you reach your goal. That's a pretty strong goal to have, to then achieve it so accurately. Did either of you have to adapt your sort of plans? Like, obviously Jan was used to being coached by someone else. You weren't used to coaching him. Did either of you have to make many changes in the way you went about your relationship and Jan as an athlete and you as a coach?
So first of all, what he did in the past. So generally, I'm not looking so much what an athlete did in the past. For sure, you look at the workload. You look what the body already had, some kind of injuries, or what are some strong and some weak points. But we started really from scratch and thought about, okay, what can we do to have still one other season on the short course, and then make the transition from middle distance to long distance. That was the plan. And we also start to work on a daily basis. So I saw him every day because he was still living in Saarbrücken, but already there he had the rhythm that in the winter he was in Australia, and then in the summer in Germany. So yeah, we started already to work on this remote relationship, but still there were sessions and for sure also competitions where we have been together. And this then changes when Jan moved to Girona and when he was completely on a long distance course, because long distance is not supported by the federation. So from there on, he started to be on his own. And we just see us several times during a year for some days, for some trainings, or perhaps at the competition. And the rest of our relation is really based on online communication. And at some point, I also asked Jan if this is good for him, and perhaps he can have another coach who can be with him the whole time and living in Girona. And but he said for himself, he also sees a lot of benefit, because the only thing to judge what he's doing in training are the data. For sure, also what he's telling, but the data, and this is quite objective. And he liked to have objective opinions and not just because you feel with him and you want to take him out of the pain or whatever. No, you want to have an objective judgment on his training. And that's how he turned a little bit this disadvantage to have not the coach there, perhaps in an advantage for himself.
And you've worked together this long, and Jan is, I think he wouldn't mind me saying, coming towards the end or the latter stages of his career. Are you still as hands-on with the coaching, or do you give him a bit more free rein? Does he want a bit more free rein now he knows, what works well for him and what you would prescribe him?
In general, I would say not so much changed. For sure, if we are at the beginning of the season, there is a lot of space. And if we talk about the concept, so it gets more and more strict the closer we come to competition. And even without telling him this, it's like how he is. So if he comes closer to his goals, he gets more and more focus on the details. So he wants guidance. He wants to have the sessions really described perfectly with all the information, what is needed. And so basically that didn't change over the years, I would say. No, it's really like he still follows the session as he did years ago, and he comes with ideas. Can we do, I don't know, ski touring, for example, and then we think about, but then also there he asked about, okay, what should be the heart rate and in which, where should I go? It's not about, I know everything, I go on feeling. The only thing where he has experience or where I trust him, and it's also not possible in the other way, if he has a sickness or an injury, the way back. So I prescribe it to him, but he is there on a daily basis, and he knows it from experience what is good and what is not so good for him. And it's on the plan, but if he's doing, for example, 10 minutes more, he is doing it because he feels it's possible and not because it's really needed. And so there he he has for sure the freedom also together with his physiotherapist on place to adapt the process, because that is quite hard to do it on remote.
Yeah, no, I get that totally. And you've worked together this long. There's not that much, if you look from the outside, that Jan can improve. What do you two focus on now? Where are the areas of improvement that you're focusing on for this season and beyond?
So basically, over all the years, we always try that Jan stays a complete triathlete, so that he's a strong swimmer, biker, and runner. And for sure, depending a little bit on the period of the year, you make a focus perhaps more on the bike, more on the run, or sometimes injury related, you have to switch. But if everything is normal, we really train him as a triathlete. So it's not to say, okay, we want to improve now significantly the run or the bike. What we see now with the development, we see how important this overall performance is. And also the run gets more and more important, it seems. So for sure, we try to keep an eye on that and look what is possible. But one thing is to know where you have to go, but the other thing is you also have your limits. So just not by knowing that you have to run these and these times, you cannot just say, okay, we go there. So you still have to follow the process, and and in a race also the race dynamics can also play a major role here. Perhaps you put everything on the run and the race dynamic is completely different. That's why we want that he has several options in the race to react, because also that is a topic when we talk about tactics. There he is also free. So we talk about different options. So what could be a tactic? Or he asked me, where do you think could be a point to attack, or where should I, with how many watts should I go or whatnot? But he takes the decision what he will do in the race, because there he has experience and he knows his body. And we both stand behind that decision. So it's not after the race that he would say, or I would say, yeah, but why did you do this? Why did you do that? No, he is the high performance athlete with all that success. It's not, he won this title, so he knows what to do, and he can also do mistakes, but we do them then together. And I think that's really a nice way to work here.
Cool. Last couple of questions. Just looking a little bit at Kristian and the Norwegian strategy and Olav's coaching. What are your thoughts on that? And are you coming from the same camp, do you think, in the coaching aspect, from what you see, the way the Norwegians are working?
So I think the Norwegians, what they are doing, first of all, it's a lot of respect from my side how they are working. They are working really, really scientifically. Everybody's 100% committed, not just in that they want to do it, but also the time committed. So if you look at, I don't know if it's Olav or support staff, how much days they are away, how much days they are with the athletes. So their whole commitment, also from their families, it's really huge. And over years, over a long, long period where they build it up. And they work scientifically. They focus really everything on these athletes. And I think they just brought the scientific approach in triathlon a little bit to a new level. Sometimes it's not that others are not able to do it, but to bring it together. So to really bring it together every day, like they always publish it when they make lactate measurements or whatever. They do this every day. They're not just doing one camp and we're doing some lactate measurements. No, we do this every day and we live this every day. And every day we think about how we can get better. That is something. And so the success is just the outcome of really hard work. And because I know Olav quite well, I know how much work is inside. And that's why also they deserve what they are doing. If it's sustainable or not, we have to see, but they raised the bar and it's a big motivation for everybody around. The only thing what I want to mention is makes no sense to copy. Makes no sense to copy them, because you need the persons also to do this. If you want to live in Sierra Nevada, for example, for 6 weeks, you cannot do this with every athlete. And then to do this several times during the year, it's not possible with every athlete, also not possible with every staff. So that's why I think everybody has to create his own performance environment, create his own methodology. But the Norwegian shows that science at least, or science-based training can create medals. And but also there, I think it's not only the science, you also need both. You need science, you need experience, you need body feeling, you need committed athletes. So you need a a whole package of things to be successful in the end.
Yeah, 100%. Right, my final question, which is really putting you on the spot. We've got Ironman St. George, the World Championships in St. George coming up. What are your predictions of how the race is going to pan out, looking just at Jan and Kristian? Who do you think is going to come out on top, and where is that race going to be won?
As the coach of Jan, I think it makes no big sense to underrate him or whatever. I would just say we try everything to bring him 100% at the start line, and if this is the case, then we will see a big fight, not only between Jan and Kristian. I think there are minimum 5, 6, if not even more athletes who will fight for the win there. And I see it as a coach perspective. I see this as the first battle, and then the second one, hopefully we have it in Kona. So that's a little bit how I see it. For sure, that these are 2 world championships. They are really important. Perhaps you even have a more stuck field in St. George. But when we look at the history, also as Jan history, we see it really like, okay, the first battle with all these new young guys, and then see where we are, and then getting the second one in Kona for the big showdown.
Well, at GTN, we wish you and Jan the best of luck for both those World Championships, and we'll be following closely. Thank you so much, Dan. I want to know about your relationship with Kristian, the coach-athlete relationship, and when you started working together and how that came about.
So we started working together in 2015. We then had a common coach, Dr. Ørjan Madsen. He was a coach from the Olympic Federation side for the triathletes, and also coaching Arild Tveiten, the sports director too, which then was, of course, also the head coach for Kristian. I got to, I think I started to train a little bit together with the guys in, I don't remember whether it was 2013 or 2014, mainly on the swim sessions. And with one of the athletes a little bit, we were also running a little bit and biking a little bit together. That was actually, he also turned coach on the team in 2017, I think. But in 2015, then Dr. Ørjan Madsen said I should get involved with Arild and Kristian preparing for Rio. So my responsibility at that time was more to shadow Kristian and Arild in their work, do some testing and observe to see what we potentially could do to improve the performance leading into Tokyo.
So I'm imagining my next question was going to sort of see if either you as a coach or Kristian as an athlete had to change much or adapt to work together. But as it's been such a gradual process, I imagine you've amalgamated to have a relationship that just works for both of you.
Yeah, I think one of the philosophies that changed when I came in was that we needed to individualize the training for the athletes. That was one of the main things, and of course I think that that's also one of the things that the athletes really enjoyed, because they saw that it was not like individualization for the sake of individualization, but it was also rooted in science, where we do different kinds of testing and to understand their power and capacity and a little bit strength and weaknesses and so on. And then when I think that one of the things that they saw also was that this produced very quickly results as well, because we went, of course, from a triathlon nation in 2016 that was fairly unknown, I would say, to suddenly being present on most of the podiums moving forward. And then especially you got the Bermuda triple, and things just grew and got stronger and stronger. And of course the athletes also really notices this, and of course, and if you look at the athletes also, you see that Kristian, Guustavv and Kasper are highly different athletes, and you look just at their physiques. And I think that when they felt also that all of them are advancing so quickly too, that was it becomes like a positive reinforcement. You just want more of it.
But what numbers do you listen to the most? Like if you sort of had to choose your, I don't know, top 5 to 10, what are the ones you really look at every day when you're coaching the guys?
Their feelings. That may be awkward to say, because I think everybody in the world have this impression that we are measuring whatever can be measured, and of course we do measure a lot, but that is only to inform or guide in the decisions. But ultimately, in the end of the day, the only thing that matters is basically the athlete's subjective feeling of it. And of course, the subjective feeling of an athlete is also affected by the metrics. So if an athlete sees that, I'm riding with a higher power than I'm doing for, that also has a positive impact on the training. Or if it's low, I can have a negative impact on it. But if you have other metrics that you can also rely on, then you can maybe give an explanation or a natural explanation for it. So the athletes doesn't, linger so much around, that it was not where that should be and so on, and you learn to understand that it is a rhythm. But in the end of the day, the most important thing is basically, and what I adjust the training on, is not so much the metrics. They are more informative metrics, and of course I'm so used to look at the data, so you see the bigger picture and so. But the most important feedback is always the feedback we get from that I have from the athletes moving forward. How
much more? I don't know how you quantify it, but how much more does Kristian have to give? What can we see coming from Kristian in the next few years?
Unfortunately, years I think is not worth speaking of, because basically we are turning back to Olympic training again over next year. So it will be the races this year, and that's it, more or less, both for Guustavv and Kristian. But I think that for Kristian, what we will see is that I think that if you just look at the bike and the run, for example, for Cosmo, knowing that the swim was a fast swim also because of the conditions that day. Bike being a little bit longer, but anyway, we can expect the biking to go maybe a little bit faster. We don't know whether we will balance it that way or the other way, because again, it's a budget. It's a budget of where do you put your effort in order to produce the fastest total time. That's we could always aim for the Uber biker approach and then just blow up on the run. But again, this is a triathlon, and it's about balancing all three disciplines. And in Cozumel, he was on the run. He was also he had a diarrhea. And of course that's not ideal for such an event, when you really know that nutrition is a huge part of it. So I think that for sure, based on that, we can go faster. How much faster we can do this year, because we also have to balance it between a little bit other things also taking our attention. It means that I think St. George, difficult to say, because it is a course that is more technical and so on as well. So, but for example, Kona, if we just use Cozumel as a reference, then for example, that he can shave off a couple of more minutes on the bike without, affecting too much on the run for sure. And if not having a diarrhea, but also now having the more experience with how fast how much can you actually take out of your body. I think we can also drop off, we can shave off probably at least 5 more minutes on the run, I guess.
I am looking at a comparison between Jan and Kristian for this video. I know there's a lot of other contenders that are going to be at St. George, including Guustavv and several other incredible athletes and some other Olympic gold medalists as well. But how do you envisage the race panning out when we compare those two athletes, Jan versus Kristian?
So I think one, of course, to be fair, Jan have had an incredible career. He is 40 years old, and so he doesn't have age on his side of it. Just from a pure physiological perspective. But what he has on his side is that he's been racing so much Ironmans over all these years. Maybe, of course, a little bit less the last years, just because of the situation and so on. But one should never undermine that experience of knowing 100%, or let's say very close to 100%, how much you can extract for yourself in the different situations. That allows you maybe to play a little bit more around with tactics than, for example, less experienced people can do. I think there are a few people that probably know themselves better in an Ironman than probably Jan does. So of course that is an advantage for Jan. But on the other side, I think that the primary strength that Kristian have is that he have been able to do more racing lately. Probably more. No, actually, that's just speculation, but more specific training. Just seeing that Jan is in Andorra skiing. But to be honest, of course, I will be surprised. No, that's well. I will be surprised if Jan beats Kristian. But one should never undermine the experience that Jan have, because I think that the experience and probably a little bit more efficiency as well, just because he's been working even more on that for a longer time. That are the things that are maybe in favor of Jan compared to Kristian. But yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I could listen to both Dan and Olav speaking all day. I find them so interesting and knowledgeable. Well, we've got some good news for you. We're actually going to be sharing the full uncut interviews on the channel soon, so keep an eye out for those. And at the end of all of that, I have to admit, I am still none the wiser as to who is going to come out top at these upcoming Ironman World Championships. But I do know that as spectators, we are going to be in for a treat. Before I go though, you know what I'm going to ask? Who do you think is going to win? Jan or Kristian? Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Give us a like and hit that globe to subscribe if you haven't yet done so.